I want to touch on that with you as well, that walk us through, because I've talked about this with actors offline and I don't think I've fully done it online. And so if you're willing to go there, I'd really appreciate it.
Sure.
When you're playing a role, I think as a viewer, we massively underestimate how hard acting is, especially when the role is the kind of role that you're playing in the crowded room.
Yeah.
Like, I think we just underestimate as a viewer, and I'm fortunate enough to know enough actors offline where I've had these conversations before, whether it's people who do method acting or whether it's people who, really try and get into character. Like you always hear about the stories of like how Jared Leto, when he was becoming the Joker, was sending people rats and
That's
human
terrifying.
feces in their mail. Like literally
I
live.
tell you what, if you sent me human feces in my mail, there'd be trouble. I wouldn't be putting up with that.
Yeah, you and Jared Leto in a boxing match.
Yeah, there'd be a boxing movie then.
Yeah, but that idea of like, I think as viewers, we don't. It's what I'm saying is like when I went on tour, I was like, I get it. I get it now. As viewers, we don't get it because we don't really hear about the deep process that actors go through of getting into a role, playing someone with multiple personalities. Like, that I don't know. Is that tough, or is it actually, or is that not, am I getting it wrong? And that's not actually the tough part.
You're definitely not getting it wrong. I think it's just different. It's case by case, There are people like Jared who dive into their roles and they do things like sending people dead rats and stuff like that. And they think that that's what they need to do. I've always been really good at separating my on-set emotions from my personal life emotions. As a young kid, I used to really heavily rely on my personal emotions to get them to come across on screen. And I just found it really unhealthy. I just found that like the line between my life and my character's life would be blurred. And ultimately, at the end of the experience of making the film, I would be a very different person, but not because of my experiences as Tom, it would be because of my experiences as my character. So I decided very early on to find certain techniques and certain ways to get into those emotions from a sort of technical point of view. I never sit on set and think about my mum getting sick or never speaking to my brothers again or something like that. I never blur the lines with my personal life and my work life. I always leave work at work. There are jobs like the crowded room that are particularly taxing. Getting to those emotions on a daily basis is really difficult and really tiring. But, it's probably somewhat like Coldplay on their 89th show. You just dig your heels in, you realize you've got a job to do. We're all wonderfully well paid. There are people that work far harder for far less. I recognize how lucky I am. So I'm like, if I need to cry today and tomorrow and the next 50 days in a row, I'll do so. Yes, it's difficult, but I think your question, I'm probably the worst person to ask that because I think I have like a really healthy outlook on how I achieve my emotions on set.
Yeah.
But I have worked with people that shut their bedroom door and just dive into the character and are pouring through the script every night and are in character all the time. And I admire them. I don't necessarily think it's the healthiest way to go about it. But yeah, I've always been really strict on myself to leave my work at work. Obviously, I come home and read the script and do all of my prep work, but I'm leaving the character at work because it's too much, especially when you're playing a character like Danny from the crowded room. Like you can't bring that into your personal life. It's tough.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean but I'm actually glad I asked it to you either way, because what I'm actually hearing is you did it early on and you saw it wasn't healthy.
Sure.
And so you actually found another way.
Yeah.
And it's really interesting because a lot of people may not have found another way, or that is their way and that is their method.
Mm-hmm.
And so it actually is interesting hearing it from your perspective, because you're actually saying, yeah, I could have gone down that road,
sure,
but I could see the dangers with it.
Right.
And obviously it depends on the roles too. Sorry, you were going to say.
No, it's my acting coach. Ben Perkins was my acting coach on my first film. And that film's really, really emotionally intense. And we started off by doing things like, can you imagine, your mum passing, or can you imagine things like that? And I would cry instantly.
Yeah.
And he was the one that actually recognized at a point, this is too much for this young kid to kind of take. So he devised these exercises where him and I could kind of have these fake arguments where I was, as a 12-year-old, maybe I was older than that, 13-year-old, could recognize that they were exercises, and I would allow the emotion to kind of come from these kind of acting techniques, let's call it. So it was actually Ben that was the one that switched my mindset. I can't take credit for that.
Yeah.